I do a lot of work with the WHO, the World Health Organization, and they figured out that 1.1 billion young people in this world are at a risk of hearing loss because of the way they listen to music and recreational sounds. Your whole life you'll have a single note which will be playing in your ear, and it almost drives people to suicide. It's that bad because you're just constantly hearing a sound for the rest of your life. Imagine that.
If I talk about my parents, if they get to hear Mohammed Rafi, everything else would stop for them and they will just get into a different zone. For us millennials, Sonu Nigam, Shreya Ghoshal, you think that Gen Z is also going to experience the same connect with the music?
Every single song is either a love song or an item song. There are only two kinds of songs that Bollywood creates. Like let's say Tauba Tauba. It just went into everybody's heads. Everybody could only think about Tauba Tauba, and I would say in a month from now, nobody's going to remember the song.
You know, Alzheimer patients during their last stages, when they were given headphones and their favorite music was played, there was a movement observed.
The songs that you learned during your childhood are songs that you remember forever. The minute you listen to the national anthem, it gives you a sense of patriotism.
Absolutely.
So that is the power of music.
Your favorite song from 80s or 90s?
Honton se chhulo tum, mera geet amar kar lo. So, and that is the craving that every composer has. You want to take that song to another level so that, this composition of mine becomes immortal.
Disclaimer. Today's podcast is not for everyone. It's only for those who want to understand health and wellness on a deeper level, who know the power of music. Music that can make us laugh, that can make us cry. Music that triggers our emotions so strongly that even we get flashbacks of the past. And most importantly, music that has the power to heal us. We have covered so many aspects of health and wellness on this channel, from diet to recipes, from physical health to sexual health, everything. But today, we'll talk about how we can improve our mental health through music, how we can channelize our anger and become a better person. A famous neurologist, Oliver Sacks, has said, music can lift us out of depression and move us to tears. It is a remedy, it is a tonic and a passion. And some of you may agree to the fact that music is the strongest form of magic. And guys, our today's guest is a magician who creates this magic. 3 times Grammy Award winner, a music composer and a producer, Ricky Cage. He is US Billboard's #1 artist who has been appreciated multiple times by none other than our own Honorable Prime Minister himself. So, let's welcome Ricky Cage. Welcome, Ricky. It's an honor to have you on this show today.
No, the honor is all mine. I'm so glad to be here.
So, Ricky, you know what? We all, like me and our audience today, we all listen to music. We all enjoy music. We love music. We feel connected when we hear
just
music.
Like me.
Yeah, just like everyone. And I'm sure, when we hit the gym, when we plug earphones and we start music, the intensity of our workout increases. The
Absolutely.
efficiency and performance, everything increases. When we listen to calming music, relaxing music, we get better sleep. Or when we listen to, let's say, white noises, we are able to do better meditation. So music has a role to play in everybody's life. I have heard this many a times that when you want to exercise your body, hit the gym. But when you want to exercise your brain, listen to the music.
Correct.
So what is music for you?
Music is pretty much life for me. Music is everything around us. So when I'm talking to you, I'm thinking about the emotions that we're going through music. When I'm walking on the street, that's a rhythm, and that's also music for me. Because at the end of the day, how did music start? Music started off as sounds from nature, right? The first thing that we experience as, in the womb of our mothers, it's basically our mother's heartbeat is the first thing that we experience. And, and that itself is a rhythm. Exactly. So, in a certain beats per minute. So basically, that's the first rhythm that we experience, and that is what we base our entire lives on. So I believe that music is something that is within us, and music is what, in my opinion, controls this entire universe.
Beautiful. You've put me into thinking. I've never, thought it in this way, that the first thing, a baby, or, when inside the womb, listening to the heartbeat, so basically rhythms and music, that's actually very deep. So I come from a creative field because I make videos, so I have to work on scripts, and I have my own creative zone. So when I have to work on scripts, I know that there's a corner. I will just sip on my coffee, I'll just observe things around me, and then I'll start getting ideas, and that's how I get into my creative zone.
Correct.
How do you get into, what is your creative zone? How do you get into that? Like, how do you make music?
There are two kinds of musicians in this world. One kind of musician who creates music as a job. Like, for example, if it's a film composer.
Yeah.
So a film composer or a composer for advertising jingles or advertising music or corporate jingles and things like that. So there somebody tells them what kind of music to make.
Okay.
Like, for example, a director says that this is the situation, create a piece of music for this, or an actor tells them that, that this is the situation, it's my hero introduction song, and you have to create music on that.
So
and
it has
they
to
pay
be a
for
certain
that.
way. Yeah.
So it has to be a certain way, and you have to think based on the sensibilities of somebody else. So it's more like a job.
Okay.
So there you can have things like creative blocks, and, because you're not able to crack, what the director wants or what the actor wants and things like that. So that's more like a job.
Okay.
But then for me, I've always created music which is based on my own sensibilities, things that I feel strongly about. Like, I feel strongly about the environment. I feel strongly about issues that we are facing, whether social issues or environmental issues. So I make music based on that. So there it is that, whatever inspires me around me. Like, for example, if I go into a forest and I want to celebrate what I'm hearing over there, then I make music on that. And if I feel strongly about climate change, or if I feel strongly about mental wellness, then I'll just create music on that. So there, it's about trying to express yourself through your music rather than somebody else's expression, Okay. So for me, music has always been an extension of nature. And I'll give you an example. Like, let's say if I were to take a photograph of you. Okay, so there are two art forms. There's photographs and there is paintings.
Yeah.
So if I were to take a photograph of you, then it would be based on the current lighting conditions. I would take a picture of you, and it would be a verbatim image of that exact moment. Based on the lighting conditions and based on your mood, it would be that image. And that would be the image that we would have. Whereas if I were to make a painting of you, then I would take a little bit of your personality into the painting. It would be open to a lot of interpretation, and it would be an artistic interpretation of who you are rather than just that image,
Okay.
So it's the same thing with music. What I try to do, I don't try to record the sounds of nature, using a microphone, because you just don't get that effect.
Of course.
What I would rather do is take musical instruments like the bansuri, the sitar, the veena, the human voice, the percussion instruments, and try to interpret that feeling that I have, that when I'm in nature, try to interpret that through the language of music. So that's what I try to do with my music, and that's what most of my music is about.
Ricky, I've seen your work, I've listened to your music, and what I've observed is your music, I feel that it's just not for entertainment purpose. I truly feel that, there are so many traditional elements in your music. There's some positive vibe which I felt while listening to it, and I feel that there's always a purpose behind it. For example, Divine Tides, like, I loved it. And then there's another album that you have which talks about environmental,
Shanti Samsara.
Shanti Samsara, yeah, that's right. So do you really feel that, composing music like these can really impact people in real life?
No, absolutely. Because, today in our world, we are facing a lot of problems. Now, there are lots of environmental problems like climate change, species extinction, deforestation. We've got plastics pollution, air pollution. So many social issues like gender inequality, gender violence, poverty, hunger, malnutrition, education issues, all of that. So I believe that the biggest threat to us as a species is the constant thought that we have that somebody else will make a difference, We're always waiting for governments, for intergovernmental bodies, corporations, leaders to make a difference, when the truth is that the only way we can bring about meaningful change is if we change our own behavior. Because everybody talks about changing the world, but we very rarely talk about changing ourselves. So the question is not about how do we create awareness now, because everybody's aware. The question is how do we convert that awareness into taking action in your own lives, That is what is the golden question. What is needed is for musicians and artists also, other artists, but in my case, musicians, to take that complex ideas and thoughts and simplify it through the simple language of an emotional language of music, so that you're hitting the hearts and and the souls of people, and and you're talking to them emotionally. And that is what will convert awareness of problems into actually taking concrete steps and action within everybody's lives. And music is a very powerful language. For example, the songs that you learn during your childhood are songs that you remember forever.
Right.
And if there are any morals in those songs, those morals will dictate your whole life. You'll always think about those morals, and you'll always feel guilty if you're not following those morals. And like, for example, every country's got a national anthem. We've got a national anthem as Indians. The minute you listen to the national anthem, it gives you a sense of patriotism.
Absolutely.
So that is the power of music. Music is a very, very powerful language, not just for communicating a message, but for retaining that message in our heads.
Right.
So, and that is why corporations, brands, they use music to promote their products, because they understand that music is a very powerful language for recall value for that particular brand, you know. So that is why music should be used for good, and music should be used for a purpose constantly.
I think I totally agree with you. So recently I went to experience this stage show. This was a stage performance, and it was about rivers in India, Indian rivers.
Fantastic.
And it was a musical performance, and one guy was playing tabla and the other guy was playing piano.
Yeah.
And then there were some dancers. They were beautifully dancing.
Yeah.
And there was nothing else.
Got it.
Like no vocals or nothing like that. It was so beautiful, so intense, and it did leave an impact on my... I was not expecting this.
Correct.
I just went there just to experience, you know, what the show has got, but it did leave an impact on me.
Absolutely.
I don't know how, but that music really left me thinking, and I can picturize, like I can really picturize different Indian rivers and how badly polluted they are these days, and it's our responsibility. I don't know how did it happen, but it did happen.
Yes.
So I totally agree with what you said.
No, absolutely. And instrumental music, you brought another topic, that instrumental music has got that capability, because instrumental music is open to interpretation.
True.
You know, so because your mind can interpret, the instrumental music in various ways. You can picture stuff and, you know, and things like that, you know. So that is why instrumental music is very, very powerful as a mood elevator, you know.
True, true. Exactly this happened. I started picturizing, and I'm sure everybody sitting in that room must be picturizing something very different.
Exactly.
So they didn't say a word. There was just emotions, there was just sound, and I don't know, magic happened.
Yeah. That's the correct word, magic, yeah.
How does Bollywood music help you? Like, what role it has to play?
So I listen to Bollywood music all the time. I'm a fan of a lot of composers in Bollywood, like Salim Sulaiman are my complete favorites, and they're like brothers to me. Then of course Vishal and Shekhar and Shankar Ehsaan Loy, of course A.R. Rahman, absolute genius. So all of this music I like listening to it. But how it figures, I guess, see what's happening with Bollywood music and the film music is that right now, because of the marketing muscle that they have, you do not need to actually go and listen to Bollywood music. It just comes to you, you know.
It comes to you. It comes to your phone.
It comes to your phone. It comes to your Instagram. It comes on all the reels that you're watching. And I've got this very bad habit where, you know, while I'm sleeping at night or whenever I'm sleeping, you know, because I sleep in increments. So I get on this endless thing, you know, where I'm scrolling reels on Instagram. So then that is where I consume most of my Bollywood music.
Okay.
And of course, Bollywood music, the quality of music is extremely high. You know, because they've got very good music producers, they've got very good musicians, excellent singers, excellent composers, everything is amazing. But the problem is that it's sort of like creating, like how in crops you have like a monoculture of crops, which is very dangerous. It is creating a sort of like a monoculture when it comes to music, where every single song is either a love song or an item song. There are only two kinds of songs that Bollywood creates, which is very dangerous for the art form. Because there are so many things that we want to express, you know.
Exactly.
There are so many things that are happening in our country. There are so many different art forms in our country, so many different cultural musical forms, tribal music,
and
indigenous
so many
music.
Different emotions that we want to cater to.
Exactly. And right now, those emotions are not being catered to by the mainstream music industry. And so that becomes a little bit of a problem. But yeah, so Bollywood figures in my, or any film industry music figures in my life because it comes to me, you know. And I enjoy it. It's not like I don't enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Right. Let's talk about music in the olden times and versus music now. Like Correct. If I talk about my parents and if we talk about like Gen X in general, they relate to a different kind of music altogether. Like I can mention singers like Lata Mangeshkar, Mohammed Rafi. If they get to hear Mohammed Rafi, everything else would stop for them and they will just get into a different zone. For us millennials, it's, you know, the music is different, like Sonu Nigam, Shreya Ghoshal. When we listen to them, when there's a music playing in the background, everything else will stop for us. how about Gen Z? Because the kind of music which is, the commercial music which is composed these days is very different than what it used to be, how it used to be. You think that Gen Z is also going to experience the same level of, emotions that connect with the music the way we used to do, or maybe our parents' generation used to do?
How much of time do you have on this podcast?
As much as you want.
So I think it's a very, very complex question you've asked. And of course, an excellent question, because that is the dilemma, that why is it that the older music sounds so good and our newer music is not connecting, and it's not standing the test of time. Yeah. So there are various reasons. One is, of course, that nowadays when we listen to older music, it's got a certain sense of nostalgia attached to it, because you've got a certain amount of life memories associated to it, which is again the beauty of music, because sometimes sound is associated with memories more than visuals. So sometimes when you remember like a deceased family member, or you remember a pet, sometimes you do not remember the visual, but you remember the sound of the person, or the sound of the animal, or a sound of a particular incident. True. So sound plays a very important role in our memories, and that's why music is such an important medium. But nevertheless, coming back to your question, so the older music is associated with some amount of nostalgia and some amount of memories associated with it, about when you listen to it, and and in what kind of a scenario you listen to it, with whom you listen to it, all of that stuff. Now, second thing is that our medium of consumption of music has completely changed today, and that has played a very important role in the creative process of music itself, unfortunately. Okay. In the past, we would listen to music on radio, on television, and on cassettes, or or records and things like that. So there, what would happen is that you would listen to a piece of music on radio, and it would play multiple times, and then the music would grow on you. So music did not have to be immediate. Music would grow on you over a period of time, because it was high quality of music. It was very high quality music. But high quality music sometimes takes time to grow on you. It is not immediate. It's not like a nursery rhyme.
Plus, there are not so many options. Like
Correct.
If one song is released, if one music is released, it will be there. It is there to stay for a very long time.
Exactly. So you listen. So the radio station plays it multiple times, and then you listen to it multiple times, and then it starts growing on you. Now, I've always believed that if a song takes time to seep into your head, it takes an even longer time for it to leave your head. Of course. But now what's happened is that now we are in the era of streaming. Yeah. Like of all of these, like Apple Music, Spotify, all of these other streaming things. So now people do not have the pride of ownership of buying a CD or of buying a cassette and keeping it at home and listening to it often, and like opening it up when friends come home and saying that, I discovered this new piece of music, let's listen to it. So that does not exist anymore. Now people do not even want to store an MP3 on their phone and waste their memory. True. Now people just want to stream music.
Yeah, when it's just a click away, then why would they take
exactly.
the phone off? Yeah.
And when you're streaming music, the problem is with the interface, that you listen to a couple of seconds, and then there are already related tracks that come on YouTube. There are related videos. So what happens is that if the first 10 seconds does not capture your attention, then basically you're going to skip to the next song. So you are only going to give a 10-second chance to a song. So that is why all of the songs today are just created for that 10 seconds, They're created in such a way that they capture your imagination within the 10 seconds, and you remember the song within 10 seconds. So the songs have to be extremely simple. They have to be almost like nursery rhymes. The melodies have to be very, very simplified. They cannot be complex melodies. They cannot be beautiful, timeless melodies. And those songs get into your head immediately. Like, for example, you have a song which is like a huge hit right now. Like, let's say, Tauba Tauba. It just went into everybody's heads. Everybody could only think about Tauba Tauba. And I would say in a month from now, nobody's going to remember the song. So that is the way it is.
The lifespan, the shelf life of a song has reduced so much.
So in the last, I would say 4 or 5 years, I would go on to saying that there is no song that has been created in mainstream India that is going to stand the test of time, and that is going to be considered a classic maybe 15 years from now. So that is not going to happen, because everybody is creating music for immediate consumption and immediate gratification. And the faster it gets into your head, the faster it goes out.
So basically, people are not able to enjoy the music the way it used to, people used to do it earlier.
Now it is instant gratification.
So instant. Yeah. But I think all this way we are missing the essence, the true essence of it.
No, that is why I believe that when it comes to music, and I'm going to digress a little bit over here, that is why I believe that a music education in schools will be extremely beneficial for various reasons. One is that it's been proven time and again that music education in children increases their cognitive abilities, also increases their learning abilities, increases their ability to grasp science and mathematics and critical and analytical thinking. And not just that, also music improves mental health. In terms of it's almost therapeutic when you're playing a musical instrument or when you're learning music or when you're performing music. Now, just like how physics and maths is taught in schools, everywhere, it's not that every child has to become a physicist or a mathematician professionally. It's just that you need to have that basic knowledge. It's similarly with music. If children have that basic knowledge, not all of them have to be professional musicians. Few will become professional musicians.
But at least the basic knowledge.
But they'll have the basic knowledge. And I, as a musician, will know that there are a whole lot of children, there's a whole new generation of people who are music appreciators. Because they're not professional musicians, but they have a basic knowledge of music, so they will appreciate music much more.
Oh, yes.
And I won't have to constantly feel that I need to dumb down my music because they will not understand,
Just as to commercialize it.
Yeah, exactly. So now I can make more complex music. I can make music that I myself like because I know that people will understand it.
People will understand the taste.
Exactly. And that will elevate the musical art form itself, So music as an art form will get better and better in our country. Exactly. So I think a music education at a school level will be hugely beneficial.
Very true. Never thought about this before. Adding to what you said, like how music impact our brain, our cognitive memory. I was just reading about it that very interesting study. Alzheimer patients during their last stages, they lose their memory and everything. But when they were given headphones and their favorite music was played, there was a movement observed. And it lasted for 10 minutes even after the music was stopped. Their MRI, scans showed that there was even though the patients could not remember their wife, but they did give a movement, when the music was played, their favorite songs were played. So that's the impact. I mean, it directly hits into your head and it really, triggers a lot of sensations and memories.
No, absolutely, because music has got a very profound effect on us, which has not been fully understood. It's a very, very profound effect. As you correctly mentioned, with Alzheimer's, I've seen musicians who are suffering from Alzheimer's in America, friends, parents, and also friends of mine. And these are brilliant musicians, and they've lost their ability to make memories. They've lost their ability of recognition. But some of them, for example, if there was a guitar player who I knew, and of course now he's no more. They placed a guitar in his hand and he could play the guitar as if he had absolutely no loss of any kind of ability. It was just amazing that how they respond to music in such a beautiful manner when, as you said, they don't even recognize people who they love. So music has got that absolute power, of reaching out. I've always said this, even with children who are in neurodivergent children who are in the spectrum of autism. If you cannot get through to these children through language, through communication, through sign language, through any kind of a mode of communication that we humans are so proud of. Music gets through to the child. And there have been studies conducted with children in the autism spectrum disorder that they've got a better ability than so-called non-neurodivergent children in recognizing notes, in recognizing scales, in recognizing the distance between notes, in recognizing melodies if it's played to them a second time. So the thing is that music is something that can get through to people in a beautiful, beautiful manner. I'll give you another example. This is not when it comes to the autism spectrum disorder, but there was this violin player who's in Algeria, and I'm a huge fan of his work. He loved my work, and I wanted to collaborate with him. So I flew to Algeria, and I decided that I'm going to collaborate with this person, and I took a whole lot of notations, I took a whole lot of music, and I started explaining to him what the music was about, and I wasn't able to communicate with him because he only knew Arabic. I only know English, and we were trying to communicate with each other. It was a very frustrating experience where we were unable to communicate. Our points of references were so different that we could not even communicate through, sign language and all of that stuff. And it was a very frustrating experience. Then I just got on the piano and I started playing a piece of music. And then he spontaneously just opened up his violin case and he pulled out his violin and he started playing with me. And we ended up just performing with each other for about 2 hours in the studio, and we recorded that, and that became a piece of music that we recorded together.
Amazing.
So while I could not communicate with him through any language, music got through to him, and his music got through to me, and we were just communicating emotions through the language of music, and that is how beautiful music is as a communication tool.
As a communication, no doubt. Why they say music is a language.
They say it's a universal language, and it is a universal language.
I was also reading this somewhere that music composers, like not all, but some music composers can actually, when they listen to the music, they can actually see. They can actually see the notes.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I think that's the case with most music composers. Yeah, because music starts becoming a very visual medium where you not only can see the notes, but you can also see the layers of music. Like, for example, if it's an orchestra playing, and I love working with symphony orchestras all over the world.
Okay.
And when I'm listening to an orchestral piece of music rather, I can actually visualize the different layers. Like the violin section 1, violin section 2, the oboes, the horns, the brass, the trombones, the timpanis, the harps. I can actually visualize it, and I can actually visualize the orchestra, even though I've never seen the orchestra before. I can somehow make a visualization of how they're seated while they're playing, and where the instruments are placed, and and things like that. So music, as we discussed earlier, it is a very visually evocative medium, and that's the reason why, for me, especially when it comes to instrumental pieces of music, making a music video is a very daunting task. Because when you make a music video, then you are slapping on a visual identity to the music to an end listener, whereas you want them to be... Like, I'll give you an example, like Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Of course, I've not read the books, but the thing is that I know a lot of my friends who have read the books. And whenever you ask somebody who's a fan of the books, what do you think about the movies? They'll always have 10 things to say that, I'd not like this, I'd not like that, or this particular character is not like how it is in the books, because the books were so visually evocative. And the books conjure up all these images of these different characters and the situations, and everybody's imagination runs wild,
Runs wild, and it's the imagination that they have while reading a book, it's absolutely their way.
Exactly.
It's absolutely how they would like to look at that character. They would want that character to be. So it's their version of all
exactly,
those
and it's the most beautiful version in their mind.
And then it gets really difficult to see, somebody else's version.
Exactly.
That's not how I expected this to be.
So that is the thing, you hit it on the nail. That is exactly the problem with creating music videos for instrumental music. Because in instrumental music, you've got your own idea, which is like large, the canvas is huge, and then when a music video is slapped onto it, then it reduces that impact, number one. And number two is that the end listener cannot conjure up their own images of it. Because I would really rather that... But in today's time, nobody has the time, in today's age. But I would really rather people listen to my music and they're just closing their eyes and they're listening to the music. And they're just figuring out their own images and their own emotions when it comes to the music. And they've got their own interpretation as to what I was thinking when I was creating the music. Right. So music videos have got a purpose sometimes. But many a times, I would prefer it without the music video, because I would prefer it to be just the music.
I think that's also when the music hits you differently.
Yes.
And I think that's when music leave an impact on your brain, and all the benefits that we were talking about, it multiplies when we just focus on listening to the music, enjoying the rhythms, rather than involving multiple senses at once.
Exactly.
Is that right to say?
Exactly. Absolutely.
What's the best way to listen to the music? Earphones, just like that? How?
So basically, that's, of course, a very important question, because sometimes the music can be created absolutely beautifully, but the dissemination method may not be that great. Like, for example, if you've got, let's say, a Bluetooth speaker, and you place it in a room like this, which is beautifully acoustically treated, it's going to sound amazing. But you take that same Bluetooth speaker and put it into a bathroom, which has got stone walls, it's going to sound a whole lot of echo and all of that stuff, and it's going to sound absolutely horrible. So basically, that, even if it's music for mental wellness, it's going to sound horrible over there, and it'll probably bring about a lot of agitation because of the way the music is sounding. It's the same thing with our human voice also. Like, our voice sounds different in different places. Sometimes there's echo, sometimes there's not. So the dissemination method is very important. Of course, headphones is a good way to listen to music, but at a responsible volume. So I do a lot of work with the WHO, the World Health Organization, in Geneva. And they've got this amazing initiative, which is known as the Make Listening Safe Initiative. Now, what is the Make Listening Safe Initiative? It's basically, they've done research over the past few years, and they figured out that 1.1 billion young people in this world are at a risk of hearing loss and certain degrees of hearing loss because of the way they listen to music and recreational sounds. It could be music or it could be, video game sounds and television and things like that.
And they're totally unaware of this.
They're totally unaware of this, and a lot of children already have a certain degree of hearing loss and they're not aware of it. Because it's very difficult to be aware if you've got a certain degree of hearing loss, or even if you've got
because we don't know the benchmark.
Exactly.
Where do we want to reach?
You have to get your ear tested for that, and nobody gets the ears tested.
Exactly.
And you can also have tinnitus, which is basically your whole life you'll have a single note which will be playing in your ear, and and it almost like if tinnitus is at a severe level, it almost drives people to suicide. It's that bad because you're just constantly hearing a sound for the rest of your life. Imagine that. So, and this is what happens when you are not protecting your hearing. So, and also hearing loss, when it happens, there is no way to bring it back. It's like an eggshell. Once it's cracked, it's done. So hearing loss, there's no way to bring back your hearing once you have a certain degree of hearing loss. And a lot of friends of mine, especially musicians, they get the hearing tested and they're just shocked that there is a certain amount of frequencies that they can't hear. And they've lost that degree of hearing loss, or they've lost 10% or 15% of the hearing. So basically what we need to do is that we need to understand that that when we're listening to music on earphones or headphones and all of that stuff, we should not be listening to music at an extremely loud level. We should be listening to it on optimum levels.
What is that optimum level?
So most phone devices already tell you that you should not go at above a certain level. So it already gives you a warning. So that way it's easier. Okay. Second thing is that if your ears experience any kind of discomfort, even if it is in a small part of the song, because sometimes songs go loud and it goes soft. So at those loud parts, if you're feeling a little bit of discomfort, that means that it's time for you to bring down the overall volume of your listening, of your phone or headphones or whatever, wherever you've got your volume control. Next thing is, of course, concerts. Now, concerts is another very important arena where, there can be hearing loss, because you see a lot of concerts where you have a large stage and then you have these huge stacks of speakers in front, and the people who are standing in front are going deaf, and they are experiencing huge amounts of discomfort. And the people at the back are complaining that the volume is not too loud. So what we've done through the Make Listening Safe initiative is that we've figured out ways, and we've given recommendations to countries, to stakeholders, to concert venues, to have even distribution of sound.
Distribute the
so how to do even distribution of sound, schematics of how to do it, what are the best practices. Sometimes you're sitting down on a chair and you're just hearing the subwoofer bass, and that is causing so much of discomfort. So these recommendations also tell you, how to reduce that level and how to ensure that it is an optimum listening experience for everybody in the audience. Also, it gives recommendations that, like many times when you go to a concert and the volume is so loud and you got so much of discomfort while listening to it, but you still sit down on your seat simply because you feel that I've paid so much of money for this ticket. So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch the whole thing, or you've been waiting for those musicians to come to your city and you don't want to miss out on that experience, but yet your ears are hurting. So we've given a whole lot of recommendations, like, that earplugs should be available at the venue.
Okay.
It could be for free or it could be purchasable. So that when you're entering the venue, you can purchase those earplugs and then you can sit down and you can reduce the volume level by putting in those earplugs, and you can still have an optimum experience.
True.
The second thing is that just like how you have smoking zones in venues, have a quiet zone. Okay. So like while you're at a music festival or something like that, and you're feeling that the volume is loud,
break to your ears.
You can give a break to your ears, because the hearing loss also happens through cumulative loud listening experience. So you can take a break, listen to the loud music for about 20-25 minutes, and then come out, and then not come out within the venue, have that have that safe quiet zone, go in over there, spend some time over there, and then come back out and listen to more music. So all of these recommendations are there, and these are recommendations that I strictly follow in my concerts. So my concerts, it's always at a safe listening level. I ensure that nobody will ever experience any degree of hearing loss if they come to a concert of mine. It's really important to me. And and that's what I would encourage all your listeners to ensure that, that they protect their hearing, because it's really important. All your life memories, as we've been discussing, is dictated through sound. So it's very important to have that here. And also from an ulterior motive of mine, I spend so much of time crafting my music, making sure the right frequencies are there. The flute sounds absolutely amazing. The violins sound absolutely amazing. The overall mix of the music is really, really good. And if people who listen to it cannot hear certain frequencies, then, my hard work is gone for waste. So if you want...
So you want people to have proper listening powers.
And that's the whole point of the World Health Organization's Make Listening Safe initiative. It's not against music. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It is about ensuring that everybody listens to music in the best possible way for the longest period of time.
It's to be able to listen to it properly.
Listen to it properly and listen to it in the best possible way for the longest period of time. For as many years as possible.
That was actually food for thought. And I'm so impressed that you're just not creating music. You're also ensuring that people, are able to listen to the music the right way.
Of course, that's very important.
That's so good. Ricky, there's a belief that, when you want to go to the next level in music, when you want to make it reach the global platform, you have to westernize your music, and you'll have to add a lot of pop elements to it. So what about Indian traditional music? Like, can't this level be achieved? Because as we see today, a lot of music composers and even singers, so as to reach that level, international level, they're adding a lot of pop elements to their music. Can't this be achieved with the Indian traditional rhythms and music? Because that's so rich, that's so divine, that's so diverse. What's your thought in there?
No, I believe the classical musicians in India are the ones who have been the flag bearers of spreading our culture all over the world.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it like a film industry composer or a singer, like whether it's Bollywood or any of the other industries, when they travel around the world and they do concerts everywhere, whether it's New York or whether it is San Francisco or Moscow or Berlin or wherever, they're able to fill up a complete stadium. They're able to fill up a complete auditorium. They get a massive audience wherever they go in the world.
Okay.
But the people in that audience are only people from within the Indian diaspora. Yeah. So I've been to many of these concerts when I was a teenager all over the world. And I've always seen that, I've enjoyed these concerts a lot. And I think they're amazing and these artists are absolutely stunning. But the thing is that the only people who are in the audience are people from the Indian diaspora. Whereas when I was quite young, I had gone for a Pandit Ravi Shankar concert and he was playing a pure Indian classical music set. And he was doing this at a concert hall in the Bay Area, close to San Francisco. And I went and I sat in the audience and I was looking around in the audience. And I was shocked to see that the demographic of people within the audience was very representative of the demographic of the city itself.
Okay.
Like, for example, the city had an 80% Caucasian population, white people, 80% white people in the audience, 5% Asian population, 5% Asian population inside. And I realized that this guy, Pandit Ravi Shankar, he's playing pure Indian classical music, not even fusion. He's playing pure Indian classical music on that particular stage. And he's reached out to audiences that would normally not be exposed to Indian music, and he's spreading our culture and our traditions all over the world. And I realized that this is the case with all the classical musicians, that we in India are not appreciating them. And abroad, they are being appreciated. Pandit Ravi Shankar has won 3 Grammy Awards. He's won a Lifetime Achievement Award he's won a Lifetime Achievement Grammy Award. Pandit Vishnu Bhatt, Grammy Award winner. Then you have Ustad Zakir Hussain. Then you have Ustad Ali Akbar Khan. You've got Anushka Shankar. All of these people have gotten so much of international recognition playing Indian classical music. But I guess what needs to happen is that in India, we need to appreciate our own cultural forms and our traditional forms a lot more. Like if you look at Pandit Ravi Shankar, everybody knows who he was, greatest sitarist ever. Father of Anushka Shankar and Nora Jones, Bharat Ratna winner, made sitar popular all over the world, collaborated with the Beatles. But I challenge you this, walk around Delhi and speak to at least 5,000 people, okay, over a period of like 1 month or whatever, and ask them to name one album of Pandit Ravi Shankar. I can challenge you this, nobody can name one. And he's made more than 70 albums. If you go to his Wikipedia page, you'll see a list of over 70 albums. And nobody can name an album of his, nobody can name a song of his, nobody can hum a tune of his, nothing. Because the thing is that we've lost that appreciation for our own music. But right now, slowly it's coming back. And also the benefits of Indian classical music is huge, especially when it comes to mental wellness. Like my latest album, Break of Dawn, every single piece of music is based on a different rag, which brings about a different state of mental wellness, and and it also unclogs the brain. It elevates our mood. So the benefits of Indian classical music is just huge, and I believe that we need to return back to our roots.
Very true, very true. So thank you for bringing this topic, because that's where I wanted to, that's what I wanted to talk about. When my team told me that Ricky is coming up with this album, which is about, music for wellness.
Yes.
I mean, I got so excited. I said, let's do it. Because I think something like this is happening for the very first time. We have music for all different genres. Like we have music for workout, we have music for meditation, for sleep. But music for wellness is something I've never heard before.
Yeah.
So throw some more light onto this. Like what exactly is music for wellness and what this album is all about?
So there is this very important Buddhist saying that the impurities of the environment is a direct result of the impurities of the mind, and vice versa. So in order to purify the environment, first you have to purify your mind. And that is something that I've lived by for a very long time, that it's very, very important that and not just the environmental problems, even the social issues, all the issues that we are facing around us, the heinous crimes that we are seeing around us. I believe that if we have a state of better wellness, overall wellness, and of course mental wellness, I believe that all of these problems will become problems of yesterday. So that is the spirit through which I actually created this album, because I believe that it's a very cyclical thing, that the sounds of nature is what heals us. And then once we are healed, we will be able to protect nature. So that is what this whole album is based on. Rags. It's based on interpretations of the sounds of nature. And it is done in such a way, using musical instruments, playing notes and playing scales, and the way that all the instruments blend with each other. Every single thing has been very heavily researched and very heavily put together with a lot of thought, with a lot of love, so that when one listens to it, they have an elevated sense of consciousness, an elevated sense of mood, and it will also make people happy. Okay. So I can guarantee you this: anybody who listens to this music, and if they listen to the whole album, they will come out from listening from the entire album a much happier person.
Wow.
And a much more joyous person.
Wow. That's beautiful.
This album that I'm mentioning about, the Break of Dawn album, I can challenge you this, that I already told you, one, that it'll leave you in a better state of mood once you listen to the album. But if you're driving through immense amount of traffic and you're listening to the album, it's going to calm you down.
Really?
So that would be a great use for the album. Listen to it when you're very angry and you're frustrated in city traffic, whichever city it may be.
You'll feel calmer.
Bangalore has got tremendous amount of traffic. Delhi has got a whole lot of traffic.
That
is the inspiration, probably.
So can it really help people change their behavior, as you said, making it a better society? Can it really make people think about their actions, and can it really help them think more deeply?
Yeah.
Behavioral changes, can it really trigger that?
Music can definitely trigger that. I'm pretty sure that even you would have experienced it sometimes, where you listen to a piece of music, you get emotional, and then you start thinking about stuff that you've done in the past, and bad memories come into place, and you start thinking that, okay, I have to change my lifestyle. So music can do that. Music can change.
I think just like perfume, the smell of perfume.
Yeah.
Music is just like that. Takes you back. It's nostalgic. And it revives all the memories. Your memories with that music gets associated, and then you're back to that stage. That does happen.
Yeah, correct. So and even if that music is a new piece of music, even then music can trigger those feelings, in you, and it can trigger those feelings of introspection. Right. So that is the word that I'd like to use, introspection, because what we need to do in our lives is introspect. We need to go within ourselves rather than outwards, and we need to figure out what is it that that we are doing wrong. What is it that I can do differently to make not only my life better, but everybody's lives better around me, can be brought through music. When we want to pray to God, we use music. Our pathway to God is music. If you look at the Baul traditions in Bengal, the Bauls are basically mystic musicians from Bengal. And the thing about the Baul musicians are that it's a 1,000-year-old tradition. Okay. And they were people who suffered from being of a lower caste. So they suffered constant persecution. And they decided that, all right, we don't want to suffer anymore. So they decided that, all right, we're going to go out of the caste confines, and we're going to lead cashless lives. And this is 1,000 years ago. We're going to lead cashless lives, and we're going to be nomads. And our pathway to God is not going to be through a gatekeeper. like a priest or somebody like that. Our pathway to God is going to be our voice and our music. And that's how we're going to sing to God. And we're going to sing through our expressions. And if I want a meal, then I'm going to sing for it. If I want a place to stay at night, I'm going to sing for it. And I'm going to go from village to village like a nomad. And I'm not going to have a home. I'm not going to have any attachments. I'm not going to have anything. And this tradition is still living. So, so that is what music has done. Music changed these people's lives. And music was their way, because if they had to figure out a pathway to God, they just figured out, okay, it's going to be music is how I'm going to invoke God in my life. So as I said, it's very difficult to understand the overall effect that music has. But music has got a huge effect on our lives, on society, and on our planet itself.
It can heal.
It can heal. It can bring people together. It can heal us. It can heal wounds. It can heal wars. It can do a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Never really thought this way. So Ricky, our audience, our listeners today, they're basically the people who are here, who are listening to this podcast for self-improvement.
Yes.
They all are here for personal growth. They are health conscious. They work out. They eat right. And they are somewhere in their journeys of personal development. I want to understand that how can they benefit from this album? How, any tips for the listeners? How, when they can listen? What would be the best time to listen to it? Yeah. One you said while they're struggling with the traffic. Yeah. But apart from that, if they want to, inculcate it into their daily lives. For example, I listen to the music when I am taking a shower, because that's the time when I, go into a different state of meditation and listen to the music. I feel connected. Yeah. And also because that's the only time I have something to by yourself, and there's no phone. Yeah, exactly. Rest, like my entire day is fully packed.
Correct.
So what would be the best time for our audience to listen to this music, and are there any tips like they can benefit from it?
So I believe that it's very important that when you're listening to this kind of music and you want to benefit from it, you have to surrender to the music. So it has to be a captive listening experience where you're putting on the music either on headphones or earphones or on a Bluetooth speaker or whatever it is, like however you listen to music. But surrender to it. Just sit down and don't do anything. Don't look at your phone. Don't have additional stimuli. Don't have your thoughts with you, but don't have anything additionally that, so I would say that not even when you're doing something else, not even while you're cooking or, anything like that. Just surrender to the music, listen to it for the hour, and, and you will see the profound effect it will have on you. So I think that would be important, to just surrender to the music. Now, having said that, I believe that this music is very beneficial, especially when it comes to, as I said, elevating your mood and bringing joy and bringing about a sense of overall wellness. I think this music is really good. But sometimes there are other forms of music that can help too. Like, for example, for me, sometimes when I'm very frustrated, I end up listening to heavy metal music.
Oh, really?
And because I've listened to a lot of heavy metal music when I was in college, I was a complete metalhead, wearing black t-shirt, long hair, all of that stuff,
That doesn't really go by what I can see right now.
No, right now it's completely changed. I'm a changed person. But even now I go back to heavy metal very often when I'm listening to music. And I like that, the loud music and grooving to it and headbanging to it and all of that stuff. So sometimes that helps me declutter my head. There are other things too, like, for example, if you look at sitcoms, like Friends or Big Bang Theory and things like that. Yeah. So sometimes, after a long day's work, I just, I sometimes watch one of these sitcoms and it just makes me forget my stress. And I remember, because I've watched Friends multiple times and I'm a huge fan of the show. That's like my guilty pleasure. Sometimes I just keep rewatching it on Netflix. But the thing is that there was this reunion episode that came out on Friends.
Yes.
And of course I was waiting for it and I watched it. And something that really struck me in that reunion episode was that, they were interviewing people from all over the world. And some people were saying that, I lost my mom during that time. And, and I did not have any friends and I was very depressed. And I would watch, the Friends episode and I thought those 6 people on the screen were my friends. And then you start realizing that something that you would feel is not a great piece of art. It's not something that will win an Oscar or a Golden Globe or something like that. It's just slapstick comedy. It's just very, very crude slapstick comedy. But that has had an effect on people's mental wellness and on their well-being,
Absolutely.
So you can find your well-being anywhere. You can find your well-being anywhere. It could be heavy metal music. It could be a sitcom. It could be anything. But I feel that, that music is the most neutral form, and music can actually create that, and especially the kind of music that I create, I believe, can create that sense of well-being in a much easier fashion.
Right. So it can be a meditative experience for the listeners. Like if they just sit and listen to the music and just, into it, like without any distractions, it can be a meditative experience.
It can be a very meditative experience and a very introspective experience.
Right. I would say that especially those who can't really meditate, I think this is another good way for you to, delve into the world of meditation, find your focus, gather yourself and take best benefit out of it.
Correct.
But Ricky, congratulations for this wonderful creation, for this one. You have been doing such an amazing work, and especially for this album. I mean, I really want to congratulate you, and this is happening for the first time in Indian music industry, at least. And I think people do really need this.
Oh,
and we as we started this podcast, I told you that we all love to listen to music, we enjoy it, but we don't really understand that how do we feel connected to it.
Correct.
And what level of an impact it can leave on our mind, our brain, our soul. I would say that music is much more than just entertainment.
Correct.
It's a mind-body connection.
Absolutely.
With the music. So thank you for doing such great work, and thank you for bringing this album out. So has it already released, or is it about to?
Yeah, the album is released, so it's on all the streaming platforms. So everywhere where you listen to music, it's available there.
It's available. Yeah. I would request my audience to go ahead, like immediately right after the podcast, head to
Break of Dawn.
Break of Dawn. Listen to it. Relish it, enjoy it the way just Ricky told us, get lost into it.
Yeah.
And then only you'll be able to get best out of it. But he has put in a lot of efforts. I am sure that you'll be able to recognize that, and I'm sure that you'll be able to benefit out of it. Congratulations once again.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on this.
I totally loved it, and I would also like to tell you that for the very first time, we have done such a discussion on this show. We have always talked about health, different aspects of health. We've talked about mental health, but this is we have gone to a very different tangent this time.
Correct.
And I absolutely loved the conversation.
Oh, thank you. Same here. I had fun.
Great. So to wrap it up, we have some very interesting rapid fire questions,
we can do that.
Which I would love to shoot on you, and let's see what you have to say. Your favorite song from 80s or 90s?
80s or 90s, Honto Se Chulo Tum.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I love that because it's got such a profound message that as a composer, like if I'm making a song, I want, because I can't sing. And if I try to sing, then whatever few fans I have will run away. So the thing is that it's such a beautiful, I thought that as a composer, you are telling a singer that Honto Se Chulo Tum, Mera Geet Amar Kar Lo. Yeah. So, and that is the craving that every composer has, you want the singer or the instrumentalist, to take that song to another level so that this composition of mine becomes immortal.
Wow.
Yeah. It's beautiful, that song.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it made for music composers? I'm
pretty sure it is because Jagjit Singh ji has sung it. So I'm pretty sure that they would have kept that in mind, that it is about a composer and a singer. That's what I believe.
Who is your music idol?
I would say Pandit Ravi Shankar. Pandit Ravi Shankar, simply because of how he has taken Indian classical music to a whole new level, how he's collaborated with musicians all over the world, keeping his own unique identity completely intact. You do not see him collaborating with foreign musicians where he's playing an electric guitar or he's playing Western music or whatever. He's like the musicians he's collaborated with have played their style of music, but he's played his style of music. And he's brought in a 50-50% collaboration where there's mutual respect for not only each other as musicians, but each other's traditions. So he's an amazing role model when it comes to music.
Okay, one tip to come out of creative block.
I mean, it's difficult for me to say, but I think one tip would be to start creating music which is based on your own sensibilities.
Okay.
Because once, you should only create, I believe that you should only create music when you are inspired to create music. When you don't feel that inspiration to create music, then don't create music. Take a break.
Okay.
And do something else, like read a book or watch a movie or something like that. But I would say create music only when you have the urgency to create music and you want to express yourself.
Exactly. And I would say that replace music with whatever you do in your life, and it applies everywhere.
Exactly.
So be original, be authentic, And only when it occurs to you.
Exactly.
Only when you wish to do it.
When it's the time to do it.
When it's the time to do it. Don't force yourself doing it. Okay, a funny one. A Bollywood song that makes no sense.
A Bollywood song that makes no sense.
There are many?
I think pretty much every single song that objectifies women, I think.
Oh, yes.
Like, so basically every single item song that is in Bollywood, I think absolutely makes no sense.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. One tip for upcoming musicians or singers.
In case what you're looking for is global recognition, I think, you should not be creating music which is based on Western sensibilities and, Western forms of music. But what you should do is that try to dig deep into your own root and figure out what is it that makes you uniquely Indian, and embrace that and create music based on that. And I think your honesty when it comes to your own traditions and your own culture will be appreciated by everybody everywhere in the world. And I think you will be successful.
Just like yoga and Ayurveda.
Same.
Let's just stick to our own culture because Western world is now adapting all these things
Correct.
from us. So don't shy away or don't run away from what we have got. It's so authentic, it's so deep, it's so diverse, so rich. So let's just embrace.
And it's ours,
It's ours. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you told us that you used to listen to metal when you were sad or something. So I have a very interesting question. Which type of music can help with all these emotions, which I'm just going to say? First, joy.
Joy, I feel Indian classical music.
Indian classical music?
Yeah.
Oh, I was not expecting this answer. Really.
Indian classical music for sure.
Grief.
Grief would be ghazals, I think.
Right. Anger?
Anger, heavy metal music.
Heavy metal?
Yeah, definitely.
It'll help you come out of the anger or it'll help you what?
It'll help you channelize your anger. That's what I would say. It'll not. It could help you come out of your anger, but it could also help you channelize the anger, because if you are feeling anger towards an individual, it'll channelize that anger towards feeling anger towards what the song is talking about.
Will it help you think more sensibly or clearly?
It will, because because what is very dangerous when it comes to anger is that, as an emotion, in my opinion, is when it's at the expense of somebody else. Right. It's at the expense of another individual, or it is at the expense of an animal or a piece of property. So what heavy metal music can do is that heavy metal can channelize that anger, where the anger can be removed from that person, and the anger can be removed from that piece of property or that animal or whatever, and the anger can be channelized towards the song itself and what the song is talking about.
Oh, so is that why listen to the same intensity of music as the intensity of your emotions are? Because from your answers, what I'm understanding is if you're angry, that means your emotions are very strong, high, intense, and then you listen to the intense music, the same level of music, so that you are able to channelize it better.
Actually, I never thought about it this way, but you've pretty much diagnosed it. That's exactly what it is. Try to listen to music which is at the same intensity.
Same intensity. Yeah. Because I was expecting that it'll be opposite.
Okay.
When you're angry, listen to classical.
Yeah.
But, okay, you put it the other way, but that makes sense actually.
Yeah.
Okay, lack of motivation.
Lack of motivation.
When people want to feel motivated and get back to their work or do a workout.
I think, some of these film soundtracks, these Hollywood movie soundtracks.
How will they motivate you?
They motivate you because they're quite soaring. These, for example, you listen to, let's say, the Gladiator soundtrack. It's got that very inspiring quality. Or you listen to the Chariots of Fire soundtrack. Or you listen to the Avatar soundtrack. It's very motivating. When you listen to it, it's very soaring, and it makes you feel that everything is fine in this world, and 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 I can do anything in this world. Yeah.
To reduce stress and anxiety.
I think definitely my music.
That's where we wrap it up.
That is what.
Fantastic. I totally loved it, and thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing all that you did. It was really a lot of new things we learned today, and I'm sure the audience did as well.
Thank you so much. It was good. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast as much as I did. Would you really like to see more of such podcasts on this channel? If yes, then leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to mention which is your favorite song in the comments. I'll see you next time. Till then, fit raho. हिट रहो।